Well, I think I would say there isn't any specific time. Art has always been part of me. I mean, art is part of everybody. It's just that when you say art, it's about really giving time. You know, we have to have our own, job and bills to pay, and art is a very demanding in terms of time. So I would say the past 4 years, especially, the fact that I have really sacrificed myself and knowing that for art, what you really need is a lot of time and consistency and dedication. The fact that I think I'm able to do that, you know, just like working 3 days, living in New York for the past 4 years, I'm barely just paying my bills. But the good side is I'm actually doing it for the sake of art.
That was Gyatso Chuteng, a Tibetan artist born and raised in Kathmandu, Nepal, and currently residing in New York. He went to school both in India and in the States, taking a particular interest in the work of interior architecture. He originally immigrated to San Francisco, where he continued his studies and eventually found work at an interior design firm. More recently, he moved out to the East Coast, New York specifically, where he both continues his architectural work and finds time to dedicate to his art. When asked, "What does art mean to you?" Gyatso pointed out the flexibility of the very word artist, emphasizing art as something beyond categorization, beyond a singular definition. He described art as an outlet in which people can paint their honest feelings, creating reflections of both an individual's reality and their imaginings.
To me, art is about it's an expression, and it could be any medium. It's somebody who's expressing something honestly. So it could be a poet, it could be a writer, it could be anybody just using any forms of medium to express something honestly. I believe I have the hardest time to say, when do I call myself as an artist? Do you go to art school and you produce some artworks and then do you become an artist? Or it's a gray line. So I think my definition, and everybody has their own definition, somebody who honestly expresses something through any form.
In our interview, we also talked about how he views the influence of one's cultural and social identity. While acknowledging the effect his Tibetan identity has had on a number of his works, he does not think of art as being bound to a singular piece of one's identity. Inspiration, he believes, can come from any number of places or people and can be appreciated in just the same way.
So when I started, a lot of the works that I created, the more works that I will be creating, I do not approach in a way that, oh, I'm a Tibetan, I'll have to do something Tibetan related. I do not approach it that way. I approach it what inspires me, regardless of my identity, regardless of, and anything that has inspired me so far, anything that I know will inspire me to do, somehow will be influenced based on your identity.
He shared with us his recent series, a number of works inspired by Larankar.
One of my recent works, which is the Larungar series, is, again, as I was saying earlier, when I started creating works based on Larungar, I didn't approach it like, oh, I have to do something Tibet related, and then I started looking up. No. So when I saw Larungar's photo online 5-6 years ago, I was totally blown away. Just looking at the photo, and not just the photo. And then when I start reading about the place, it's a magical place. And 40,000 plus monks and nuns and lay people, basically because of one really famous, very influential Tibetan Buddhist teacher. Everybody wants to leave everything behind and start, dedicating whole their life in pursuit of, a much more simpler life. And then kind of architecturally, all this small mud dwellings kind of grew sporadically, So it's an architectural marvel to look at.
While any onlooker might find inspiration in the beauty and majesty of Larankar, Gyatso Chuteng was able to encapsulate and create his own unique expression of the images he saw by utilizing incense as his artistic medium.
When I was approaching it, I think this is probably coming from a designer standpoint, an architect or artists or builders is like the medium. How do I express, that avant-garde? What defines that place, And it's mostly because it's more Buddhist institute or the monasteries. And so what is the element or the color which is relevant to that, landscape? And when the Tibetan incense as a medium struck to me, I was ecstatic, and I think there cannot be a better medium to express.
In the same way he decided to use incense as the medium for the series, he also chose to use a color palette that symbolized his point of inspiration. The muted maroons and various shades of saffron speak to the importance of Lorangar as a site for Tibetan Buddhism, the home of tens of thousands of monks and nuns. He found the artistic process of these works in particular to reflect an essential truth in art, that it requires both a deft hand and a patient mind. His Lorangar series required the careful placement of hundreds of pieces of incense, a time commitment to say the least. Yet he found joy in this process, he explained, because while inspiration is exciting and getting as quickly as possible to that end final product can be an enticing idea, it is the journey that must be appreciated and enjoyed, not purely the destination.
I have 8 pieces in this series. Coming back to Tibetan incense as a medium, most of the pieces, all the pieces I would say, are made of almost 3,000 to 4,000 pieces of fragmented Tibetan incense. So putting one incense at a time, requires a lot of patience, consistency. And I think, so that's the beauty of art is, I think art really teaches you about patience. It teaches you about self-discipline. Because a lot of times we come with an idea and then we cannot wait to finish it because we wanted to see how we get too excited. And this is true with anything in terms of design, art. But I think art kind of teaches you to take it slow, just take one step at a time, and just enjoy the journey. It's not the destination, and we know it. But then I think doing it and really experiencing it is another level. And then I have few pieces that are actually just acrylic. And again, even though it's an acrylic, it's a repetitive. It's basically I'm drawing one house at a time, and I think the repetition is what is again. It's more of a meditative process where when you do one thing at a time consistently over and over again, that is where you basically kind of you don't think about a lot of other things, you just focus. So it really kind of helps you calm down and focus.
During our interview, I was able to ask him if he had any words of wisdom for young and up-and-coming artists, though of course his advice is applicable to all of us, no matter our age or our ethnicity.
I do have small advice, maybe 2. Mm-hmm. I would say the first thing is consistency. It is very easy when you're younger to really get excited about art because it's cool, it's exciting and all that. But the most important thing is about consistency. It's when I look at people's art, first I look at his or her history. How long has she or he been doing it? And consistency is, if somebody's been working on art for over a period of time on a very consistent space, I have much more respect for that person rather than somebody who's very creative and do something really cool and then it's he or she's lost, So I would say consistency, even if it's sketching or doing some creative work in terms of any medium, as I was saying as an artist, it could be writing, it could be music, it could be poem, anything that is you're doing it on a daily basis for a long period of time. I think that is what you should inculcate in your routine. I would say, and it's easy for me to say. We're all struggling, but I think that is my first advice. And second advice, as a Tibetan young artist, don't try yourself to be a Tibetan artist. What I'm saying is, you are a Tibetan, your identity, that will never go away. Mm-hmm. But as an artist, when you're expressing something, your identity will automatically reflect when you are being honest about your work.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of art, you know. A lot of times, a lot of my Tibetan friends would say, "Hey, Gyatso, why don't you do something political stuff in Tibetan?" I'm like, no, I want the Tibetan artists to do non-political art, because you are born Tibetan, and anything that you do something, you already are political. You don't have to be. When the Tibetan artist or somebody, he's trying to make a more political art, then I feel like that's an overkill.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is, being in Tibetan itself is your identity. So you don't have to be Tibetan too hard. Your identity itself is there. So when it's subtle expression of your identity, you're not trying hard to express. And I think that's the beauty of art.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my advice to my younger Tibetan artists and friends.